Alright guys, so I see this question a lot on forums, online, even in some videos and stuff, but it's what filter should I buy? And there's tons of choices out there. There's canister filters, there's sponge filters, hang-on backs, internals, and for the most part they all do the same thing. It's media and water flow. In a lot of cases, you don't even need that much. Like sponge filters, Madden filters, those basic ones are usually more than enough for most people. But today I want to talk about the Top 10 MF10. And this filter is one that I personally really like. It's $12.99 at PetSmart. You can get some bigger sizes too. This is the MF10. So it's like 13 bucks. And what I really like about it is that while it is, a cheap plastic thing, if I open up the box here, of course it kind of comes out just, plain plastic. It's a very simple filter, but it doesn't use a traditional cartridge-based design. It does use cartridges, but I use that term loosely. So what you get straight out of the box is this. So it's just a little, maybe 6" by 3", 6" by 2", something like that, filter there. It's just suction cups onto the tank, and if we pop this off, that's where the cartridge goes, right? So the cartridges for this kind of filter are really cool. You pop that, take it out, and they're made to be replaced, but what they are is just a little bit of sponge. So it's actually sponge with a little piece cut out. So if we take that and pop that out, there's carbon in there. So if I take that, maybe you guys can see that, maybe not, but it's just carbon in there, right? And I usually just dump that carbon out because I don't use carbon in most of my tanks, but you can leave it in there, do whatever you want. But it's a great biological media, right? So compared to like a filter floss cartridge or something like that, where you're going to have to replace it all the time, these you can use for years and years and years. And even if they do get kind of old and start to fall apart and you need to replace them, the replacements for these are like $2.99 or something like ridiculously cheap. Or you can use like an aqua clear sponge, right? You can get those for $5 or $6 for a big pack of them that would do like 6 of these filters. Or you can use plastic pot scrubbies from the dollar store that are $1, right? So they're very versatile, and for the most part they do a great job. Now, one of the biggest kind of negatives to this filter, in my opinion at least, is that the actual chamber for the media is kind of small. If you're wanting to use like bio balls, bio rings, any of those ceramic medias, you're not going to have a ton of space for that. But I don't think that's really what this filter is intended for, right? I mean, you gotta think, this is sized for a 10-gallon tank. You could use it for a bigger tank, you can use it for smaller tanks, but 10 gallons is the intended size. So realistically, this is way more biological capacity than you're ever gonna need. And I don't personally find ceramic medias to be needed in most cases, right? If you got a big sump, it might make some sense, but otherwise just stick with sponges. My personal favorite use case for these is actually not as a biological filter, they work great for that, but it's actually as a water polisher. So if you take this and you shove some filter floss down in there, just like some pillow batting from Walmart, some name brand filter floss, whatever you want to use, it makes a great water polisher for an aquarium with another filter on it, right? So in the 20-gallon, that's kind of back behind me over this way, that you can't see, if I can point that way, that way. It's got a sponge filter on it, which handles all the biological filtration, and then it's got one of these filters, which I'll put back together here. It's got one of these filters that will actually work as a very useful water polisher. And sponge filters will serve as some mechanical filtration. They'll collect particles and stuff. But in that particular tank, I use clay sand, which is very light. It ends up getting stirred up pretty easy. So this filter will just collect all that dust and keeps it from getting out to the tank. And actually in my green spotted puffer tank, I use the same thing. It's just one of these and some filter floss. And it keeps from, all the, as the puffer blows the sand around, as you get, the crabs stirring stuff up, it just kind of collects all that. I empty it out once or twice a week, throw some new stuff in there, and you've got a $15, less than $15, but a $15 water polisher that is just as good as one you might pay 30, 40, or 50 bucks for. The actual flow rates for these are, I think, 80 gallons per hour max. So that's, if we turn it all the way up, it's got this little slider here. It's 80 gallons per hour max, which is not a ton, but again, we're talking this is made for a 10-gallon tank, so there should be plenty for like a 10. If you're using it as your sole filtration source on a larger tank, you may want to supplement it, not because it's not enough biological filtration, but because it's not going to provide enough flow for like a 30-gallon tank or something like that. But again, these make great supplemental options in larger tanks and are very good filters for smaller tanks. Another thing I really like is this little grate on the bottom, if you guys can see that. It's small enough so that most fry won't get sucked up into them. And I'm talking, guppies, mollies, platies, swordtails, that kind of thing. If we're talking like pseudo-mugil fry, the dwarf rainbow fry, Cory fry, stuff like that, cherry shrimp, they're going to get sucked up in there. There's nothing you can do about that. If you put some filter floss around the intake, that can help out some, but there's only so much you can do. It's fry safe for the most part. So I think that if you're maybe someone who's looking for a replacement filter for your 10-gallon kit, throw this guy in there with just the sponge it comes with, and it's gonna do a really good job. That and where they're actually in the tank, they're down in the water. The motors don't burn out either. So if you actually take this apart, it snaps in half. Yeah, snaps in half. It's basically just the pump portion. You can see the impeller there, where that's actually down in the water. It doesn't have to work to pull the water up an intake tube like a hang-on back filter might. So the pumps tend to last a super long time. I've had some that I've been using for literally years, 5, 6, 7 years, and you're paying something. You're spending 13 bucks on something that might last you close to a decade. And not every one of them is going to last that long. I've had great luck with them, but maybe you won't. But in my experience, they do a great job. Last thing I want to touch on is that these have the best suction cups of any cheap pump I've ever used. So they're just little soft suction cups that pop in and out. But because they're so kind of flimsy and malleable, they hold their suction much better than a lot of the stiff cheap ones you're going to get. They just kind of pop in there, and they are hard to get in and out because it's you pop the little nubbin into there, so you usually have to take something and stuff it in there. So it's not great, and sometimes they do come off when you're trying to pull the filter off the side of the glass. But you just have to pull the suction cup off, stuff it back in there, and they last for years and years and years. The one that I've been using for like 7 years, it's still got the original suction cups. I am missing 2 of them because I probably took them out of the tank at one point and just threw them somewhere and forgot about them. But even with just the 2 that are left, it still holds onto that tank just fine. So compared to a lot of the cheap filters that you're going to buy that you can't get for the life if you just stick to the tank, you're never going to have that problem with this filter. So overall, for a $13 filter that will last you for years, when used properly, I think that it's a great beginner filter, a good water polisher. It's good additional filtration, and it could even be something if you've got a larger tank and you just want to have something, a spare filter cycled in case you need a hospital tank or a quarantine tank. This could be a great thing. Just put it down into the corner of your tank in a decent 40, 50 gallon tank. You're not going to be able to see it because it's pretty tiny. So I think this makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. I would personally give it like a 4.5, 5 stars, something out of 5 stars, something like that. There are things that could be better, right? So this does kind of pop off sometimes. So if you're not careful, of course this one doesn't want to do it. There we go. So that does pop off at times, especially the brand new ones. You have to really stuff it down in there, and there is an O-ring around it. Sometimes that'll come off. So when you first take it out of the box, you're going to want to check it, make sure everything fits tightly. But again, for 13 bucks and really no extreme use cases, I think this is a great buy. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe, like. If you didn't like it, leave a comment so I know what to fix in the future. And hopefully you'll check me out again. Thanks.